Officials in Portland are saying Measure 110, which decriminalized hard drugs in Portland, was a complete mistake and a failure. As drug use increases, overdoses increase. We called this at the beginning, but now we've got the hard evidence. Numbers are up. This didn't help out the drug problem in Portland. In fact, it made it worse. Let's jump on into it. Let's see what the dealio is. Here we go. All right. This wasn't a hard one for us to call, was it? It's like, all right, you're going to decriminalize hard drugs. What do you think that makes Portland? That makes Portland, welcome to Portland, a ghost town filled with cartoon characters from hell. That's a direct quote from one of you fans on comments on the YouTube. And you know what? That's sad because those cartoon characters, those are actual human beings that have taken enough drugs that they look and act like cartoon characters, which are not real. And that's literally what you're seeing on the streets of Portland. Any of the videos you watch on, homeless encampments, whatever it is, these populations, you'll look at them and you're like, those people aren't acting like human beings. They're not acting like animals either, but it's this hybrid thing, which is a cartoon character. And it's because of the drugs these people are ingesting and putting into their systems. It's literally making them just whacked out. I mean, we used to say whacked out on drugs from the standpoint of, they took too much acid. It is way beyond tripped out on acid now. I mean, it's just so far beyond that. You watch that, and I watch a lot of the stuff on Philadelphia, Kensington Avenue, because that, I think, is one of the true epicenters of what's going on. And you've seen some of the new drugs there being tested out on the streets, social experiment. Hey, let's give these out and let's see what's going on. And yeah, the end results are horrific. You just watch people wandering around just, nodding off in the middle of traffic. I mean, you're seeing more and more stories of that. People nodding off, getting arrested because they just nodded off in their car. So 2 years after the state of Oregon decriminalized hard drugs, some people are calling the decision a mistake. We knew this going into it. This is a terrible idea. Voters approved Measure 110 in 2020, which decriminalized small amounts of hard drugs and funded addiction and mental health programs. But the rollout of the funding for those programs was slow. There was video of this, and the state officials that are, they're in the process of making this program viable and available to the public. They're like, yeah, we haven't seen a lot of success because we haven't been able to get these funds into the system, really start helping the people that need help. The major issue I have with Measure 110 is you decriminalized a bunch of stuff, and now it made it into a Class E misdemeanor, I think it is, which is you pay a fine of $100 tops. No judge is going to give that to a homeless person on drugs, especially not in Portland. Or you can go get an evaluation at a drug clinic, right? Those are kind of your options, but it's no longer a felony. And the reason they, decriminalized it was because they felt like, well, that's not going to help us by charging, people with no money for their drug usage. But the flip side to that is it's created an environment where, hey, let's go to Portland. Hard drugs, you don't even get hassled there. Why wouldn't we go there? And so that's what you've got going on. It's just become literally, like I said, a ghost town filled with cartoon characters from hell. That's characterization of downtown Portland, because that is what has happened. So, the good stuff that was supposed to come from Measure 110, you can't force people into treatment. That's a no-go. Can't force people into treatment. So I think this really, I don't know. I don't even know how to characterize it. Naive. I guess naive would be the word. That, hey, if you got enough money and you've got the programs there. People are going to come there and go, yep, I need some treatment. I need to detox and I need to get my life back in order. Why would they? They're on a run with drugs, and anybody who's experienced anything with people on drugs, they got to bottom out. And the folks that are attracted to Portland, the way they're going to bottom out is when they get carted off from an OD and they're dead. That's the way this goes unfortunately, for a large portion of these folks. Or they have that overdose where they just fry them. And that's why you're seeing all these folks wandering around that are just literally, remember that commercial? It was, you had the egg and you had the frying pan going, this is your brain on drugs. That's literally what's happened to these folks' mental facilities, because they're just gone. So the Oregon Health Authority says by the end of this month, it will have spent or obligated, there's the key term. Well, we've got it earmarked. Are you getting people into treatment? No, but it's earmarked. We're going to do it. It will have spent or obligated $845 million of the more than $1 billion lawmakers earmarked through the end of the year. I don't see this having any impact so far. And that's what, these officials are saying. The officials who were like, yeah, no, that's a terrible idea. And now they're coming right out and saying, this was a horrible idea. And now we have the evidence. Look at the streets of Portland. Take a look around. How's that working out? How's that going for you? Not good. Not good at all. Funding applications have stacked up because state officials underestimated how long it would take to get the money out the door. Even if they get the money out the door for these programs, unless you force people into treatment, they're not going to go. We see this time and time and time again, where you've got these homeless encampments that get swept out. Hey, you want to go into treatment? Not really. Hey, you want to go into a city-paid shelter? No, not really. It's dangerous there. You got bed bugs. Yeah, but in your tent on the street, you could get killed. So, but in the tent on the street, they also don't have rules. And they can do the drugs and they can continue living their lifestyle. And down in Portland, it's even worse because you've basically got a situation where you've told people, go to Portland, hard drugs, decriminalized. Why wouldn't you go there if you're, if you're living that lifestyle? And that's why you get these cities on these, West Coast cities and also the East Coast cities that have lawmakers that are like, it's, that literally the backbone to this is it's expensive. And then when people get convictions for drugs, they can't, get a job. All right. But it also deters people from getting into hard drugs that are on the cusp, right? Now there's no deterrent. And guess what? These numbers are skyrocketing as far as the drug use and overdose and all that goes, to the point where this is becoming an epidemic in schools and high schools and middle schools. You're seeing kids die. You're seeing kids OD. Back in 2018, you heard about it every now and then. You heard about some kid, ODing, but it was very rare. Now you hear about it all the time. It's just not a big deal. And it's fentanyl. And it's these other synthetic drugs that can be produced for super cheap. They get produced in China, get produced in India. And they get brought up through the southern border, brought up through the Mexican gangs. This is known stuff. This is not, we're not making this up. This is literally what's happening. And, Oregon is, it's got the spotlight on it. Let's see what the train wreck of Portland is doing right now. Yeah. How's that working out? How'd Measure 110 do? Yeah, you decriminalized. Did things get better? Oh, no, it's because we can't get our money into the system. And yeah, a lot of excuses. All right. So when the money does go through, do you think are you going to observe just a massive decline, streets clean up, homeless people go home? Hey, we got sober. Yeah, we went through detox and we did our 30-day program and we're feeling much better and we're going to pack up our tent and we're going to go get jobs. And are you going to see a lot of that? Absolutely not. You will not. You will continue to see this use skyrocket because people are coming from all over the country. Go to Portland. Why wouldn't you? If that's your gig, if that's your lifestyle, go to Portland. Keep Portland weird. Portlandia, right? A new report from the Oregon Health Association says that Oregon has a higher prevalence of behavioral health problems than most other states, but less access to care. Why does Oregon have a higher prevalence of behavioral health problems than most other states? Do you think it's because they've attracted it? Could that be? You've attracted folks who know they've got mental health care problems, and they know that if they go to Oregon, they're going to get taken care of. Yeah, probably. They know they've got drug issues. They know they've got dependency problems. But in Oregon, a lot of those problems are mitigated and they can live that lifestyle. And here you go. And so, this is not shocking stuff. This is cause and effect. This is news for reasonable people, right? I mean, well, that does make sense. That is pretty reasonable. But you've got these politicians that are like, oh, okay, we need to do something drastic here. And we really believe in our fellow human being, even though they're shooting up amidst their own feces on the sidewalk of a public street or they're in a public park. We believe that they're capable of making the right decision. So therefore, we're going to decriminalize drugs in general. This will work out good. There was a lot of learning on the fly during the time the COVID-19 pandemic was depleting Oregon's healthcare workforce, diverting critical resources. Okay, I get that. That makes sense. But, all industries were depleted. People just weren't working. And then you had, we're shut down, we're open, we're shut down. That whole deal, and healthcare had to put so much emphasis into COVID, putting people on ventilators. Oh, that's not working out. Maybe ventilators aren't the right thing for COVID. Oh, yeah. Yeah, just a lot of gyrations in general, a lot of chasing our tails around until we figured out what was going on. And then, here we are now. Meanwhile, 2 years goes by and Portland, it's not looking better. Let's just say that. The stories that I read here, they're not going on the right trajectory, which is, hey, things are looking up. Things are looking better. This response comes after criticism and frustration as people watch the addiction crisis unfold on Portland streets. It's what you're hearing a lot about. You're hearing Main Street now complain about the effects of downtown, Main Street being just your average Joe person in Portland, and they are watching their communities get overrun because you've got all these folks that are attracted to the drug climate in Portland, and you got to come up with money for that fix from somewhere. You're going to come up with it from stealing, from robbing and stealing, right? Many people have told Coin6 News that they commonly watch open drug use in Portland, and experts say new meth and a flood of fentanyl into the city are only making problems worse. Got that whole supply-demand thing. If you if you build it, they will come. Well, you've built an infrastructure in Portland where people are coming to use drugs, live on the streets because they can. This is not hard to imagine. If you had the option to do drugs and be homeless in Alaska or may say Oklahoma City or a moderate climate, and they prosecute in both those places, especially Oklahoma City. I mean, they're not messing around there. Oklahoma, Texas, they're not messing around with hard drugs. They're like, yeah, you know what? We're not even going to legalize weed. Screw you guys. We're just going hardline here, which that's a whole nother story. Whether, you want to believe, okay, marijuana it's the gateway drug to heroin. Okay. There's probably something to that, but enough, I think normal people use weed, tax it, take those tax dollars, fund these programs. Okay. Yeah. Well, the states that don't do that, they just haven't had these issues because they don't allow homelessness to just explode either. So there is some real cause and effect to, going back to Nancy Reagan, just say no. That was a little bit naive as well, right? I mean, that didn't make a lot of sense. Just don't do it. It's like preaching abstinence to a bunch of Catholic schoolgirls, right? Yeah, just don't do it. Yeah, just, hold your urges. It'll be fine. Work your way through adolescence. It'll all be good. And then they come out on the other side and they're just a bunch of party animals. That is pretty standard, right? Sorry, Catholic schoolgirls. Yep. In May, that goes for Christian students too, as well. I think I certainly experienced that in my high school. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I guess you're not going to church anymore. In May, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler called on the state to do something about the crisis. Last week, Portland Police Association President Aaron Schmaltz brought up the measure in a conversation about public safety. This is a good paragraph here. We have obviously a significant houseless problem. The word houseless, homeless, right? I mean, but we've got to go to semantics. A significant houseless problem that leaves people very vulnerable, and finding ways to get people into shelters, get people off the street, get people into treatment. Measure 110 was just a complete mistake. Tell us how you really feel. And it has led to significant amounts of increase in drug use, in drug dependency. Boom. There it is. We called this back then. This isn't going to work out well. You're just going to have a bunch more people who, this is their lifestyle. And that's what you've got going on in Portland. And then you've got the whole other, part and parcel of the equation, which is you got to fund your drug habit somehow. So robbery's going to go up and shootings are going to go up. I mean, how many of the shootings that we hear about in Portland are drug related? How many of those are drug related? Guaranteed high percentage. We don't even want to know because we just know. Oh yeah. Okay. So many of these calls where the police are called out, they've come across one, gunshot victim and they don't want to say anything and nobody else around wants to say anything. It's because you got two gangbangers shooting each other, right? You just do. This is not rocket science. So, mum's the word on that. You're not going to say anything, but you can just see in news story after news story after news story what's going on. And you've got rival drug gangs running drugs that are, shooting each other. As they do. And we see that bear out itself in overdoses. The fact that we've got significant amounts of increase in drug use and drug dependency, because we can see the overdose numbers. Overdose numbers in the United States up to, I think last year was 107 or 117,000? I mean, it's an epidemic. You got people dying from doing drugs. And yet we're working on, let's eliminate the gas-powered vehicles. But then again, don't charge your vehicles. Our power grid isn't, it's not stable enough to take a little bit of turning up the AC unit. So, crazy stuff, right? It's like priorities. Don't you want to have fewer people end their lives by sticking a needle in there or, doing a little smoky of the fentanyl off the tin foil on their path to becoming a cartoon character from hell? Even in our schools, overdoses. So we need to lean into these problems and again, work together even when we don't align. All right. What is this official saying? What is this official saying? We need to lean into these problems. All right. We need to address it. Hey, Measure 110 was probably idiotic. It didn't make any sense. It didn't, because we're seeing the direct results of it. I mean, it's just not hard to see. Like, okay, now what's going to happen then? It's like Chicago handing out $12,000 to trans people, non-binary people, homeless people, and hoping with no strings attached. No, not Chicago, Denver. Denver's doing that. I mean, that is really going to pump some money into the drug economy, isn't it? I mean, that's just going to be a PPP program, payroll protection program for the drug economy. And the drug economy is already going strong in Denver. So now you're just gonna, you're gonna squirt a little bit of lighter fluid on there and watch it go. 𝐏𝐞𝐬𝐬 provided no data connecting Measure 110 to an increase in drug use or overdose. However, in May, officials with Portland Police Bureau told KOIN6 News that they had been notified of 87 overdose deaths in 2020, which jumped to 113 in 2021. As of May of 2022, Portland Police Bureau had been notified of about 58, with 27 of those linked to fentanyl. And all you got to do is just look at a little bit of footage of Portland, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, all right, this is what's going on. Maybe Measure 110 didn't have the intended purpose. Maybe there's some money in there that's going to do some good for people. That's the pro. That's the positive. Hey, let's look at our glass half full. But I think the glass half empty side of this equation is far greater, which is a measure decriminalizing drugs. All it does is say, hey, come to Portland. let's do some drugs. Let's share some hard drugs. Let's get down. Let's keep Portland weird and let's get this party going. All organizations receiving Measure 110 funding can be found on the Oregon Health Association website, which also provides information on how to connect with each organization. What a bunch of nonsense. I mean, let's get back to we need to lean into these issues and we need to come work together even when we don't align. What's that going to look like? We keep hearing rumblings in Portland of people going, yeah, you know what? Our public safety is just in the dumps right now. I don't feel safe. People are either leaving, they're talking about leaving, or, they're talking about possibly, and weirdly enough, voting for people that, have public safety in mind. Shocking. Instead of people who are like, let's just decriminalize it. This will be good. Give people a chance to get into some of these programs and get their life back in order. And that's the really naive part of, I know I keep using that word, but it's so true. People want to believe that others are going to, make the right choices. And when you're hooked on drugs, like we're talking about people in this situation, you got to be forced to go. And that's only going to come probably from the court system. Either end up in jail, dry out there, or, you can get drugs in jail as well. You get drugs in detox as well. It's just, it's super prevalent. And so, guys coming out of prison sentences go into these mandatory 30-day drug clinics and, they just get a bunch of drugs in there because people bring them in and they smuggle them in and just a mess. So even getting people into drug treatment isn't really, going to do it unless these people want to be helped and they don't. So put them in jail. At least there, they're off the streets, right? At least they're not living in a tent in somebody's park, so they can't take little Johnny or little Susie to go play because they don't want to, deal with the homelessness issue there. Those are all the things that are kind of coming down as a result of a measure like 110, which legalized drugs. I know other areas of the country have had the same thing. And, in California, there's plenty of instances of that. And how is that working out? You don't see these issues popping up in these Republican-run cities that draw a hard line in the sand and they say, no, we're not even going to do weed. We're not even going to do weed. We're not going to legalize it. And those cities are not going to decriminalize drugs. You're going to have a problem. So they don't attract that element. Portland has, and I think you'll see these numbers. You'll start to see these numbers come out in the media. And people go, oh, yeah, we didn't. That wasn't our intention with Measure 110. Here's what we were planning on. Well, yeah, you blew it with that one. Are you going to be able to get that cat back in the bag? I don't think so. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do in Portland. But the whole cartoon characters from hell, it's not a good look, is it? Yeah. Come to Portland for a day or a lifetime. We got cartoon characters from hell living right on our streets. Crazy stuff. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up next time. Bye for now.